Resistance. We are no stranger to it. Everyone faces resistance in their lives. Resistance in their creative practice, resistance in their education, resistance in their fitness and nutrition, resistance in their relationships. Resistance comes in many shapes, sizes, and forms, and it's that roadblock that often keeps us from pursuing the things we want to do or being the person we want to be. So I've been in a bit of a mood lately. There's been a lot of things going on, some good, some bad, and I tend to be the kind of person where when too many things pile on top of each other, I just don't deal with any of them. Now I know what you're thinking.
Wow, that's a fantastic attitude to have.
Trust me, I wish I wasn't like this either, but here we are. All this to say, I struggled through the month of April. I've been stuck in a rut, and if you've been stuck in a rut too, stay tuned because we're gonna get out of this struggle slog together. We're gonna discuss the 3 reasons why I've been in a resistance rut and the 5 ways that I'm working to overcome it. So let's start at the beginning. The end of March and beginning of April saw the launch of my first art book. Insanely exciting and insanely overwhelming. I had kind of a secret goal to sell enough books on the first day of the launch to cover the cost of printing all of the books. That was a lofty goal, and I had 0 expectations of actually achieving it. I needed to sell about 35 or so, and ended up selling 50 on the first day. When I tell you, I was over the moon. Projects like this are always pretty nerve-wracking as a small business. A lot of people can say they're interested in something until launch day rolls around, and then it's just crickets, and you're left with a closet full of products that nobody wants. I've been burned by this before. But that wasn't the case here. Y'all showed up for this book launch, and I only have like 15 left of the 100 that I bought, which is absolutely amazing. So after the pre-order sale, I then had to ship out all of these books. The biggest thank you to my mama, the real MVP, for helping me pack these orders because it would have taken me forever. So part of my day would be spent packing orders, and the rest... Here's where we start to get a little bit vulnerable. The first reason for my resistance rut: laziness. Now, I really did not want to share this with you because it's a very uncomfortable truth, but it's the truth nonetheless. Now, laziness can look like a lot of different things. Sometimes it's bed rot. Sometimes it's the too long and too frequent coffee breaks. Sometimes it's productive procrastination, where you think you're doing something helpful, but you're really just avoiding the actual work that needs to be done. And that was me in April. A decent amount of my work, both creative and administrative, fell by the wayside simply because I didn't want to do it. I let that resistance stop me from making progress in the things that really mattered. So there's this idea of an energy menu, where you build a list of tasks and sort them according to various energy levels so that, depending on the day, you can work towards your goals according to your energy. Now, this is a very helpful tool for spoonie artists like me, and most of the time, this menu works well for me. However, during the first part of April, I found myself consistently choosing the low energy tasks simply because I didn't want to do the harder ones. So while accomplishing these tasks was still somewhat helpful, it wasn't a good decision because those higher energy tasks still needed to be done. I had the energy to do them, but not the motivation to, if that makes sense. For example, I would watch someone else paint on YouTube under the guise of education because watching someone else do it was easier than giving it a try myself. Now, what this really boils down to is not being a good steward of the time and the energy that I have on a given day. Not taking advantage of the higher energy days when they come, because sticking to the lower energy tasks is more comfortable. Just popping in to share something I'm very, very excited about. Whether you're low on time or low on energy, sometimes you just need something a little bit simpler to paint. And if that's you, I'd like to share my new mini course exploring this cozy little birdhouse vignette. The PDF curriculum walks you through all the way from some simple warm-ups to the finished piece. But if you're more of a visual learner like me, you'll also receive access to an exclusive YouTube video of the full hour-and-a-half painting process. This was such a fun one, and it's the perfect way to spend a cozy and creative afternoon. There's a link down in the description if you want to check it out, and now back to the video. So the month is going by, and I'm hitting all of the necessary urgent tasks like putting out a new YouTube video, writing newsletters for the next month, etc. But I'm not really working on new art. I'm avoiding my sketchbook. I'm avoiding writing the curriculum for the next Curiosity Quest on Patreon. And as the month progresses, we reach reason number 2 for my resistance rut: fatigue. Now, although some of my lack of effort in April was pure laziness, a decent amount, at least in the latter half, was due to a general not feeling well. With each passing week, I was getting more and more fatigued and dealing with more and more symptoms. A, shall we say, less than happy report from the doctor and this flare-up of various symptoms left me feeling both physically and mentally drained. But those bigger tasks still needed to be done whether I felt like doing them or not. That earlier laziness really came back to bite me in the butt because now I really had to do those higher energy tasks with a lower energy body. A cruel, cruel irony. It is now May, and I'm still playing catch up because of this. Whether you're a chronically ill artist or not, no one wants to work when they aren't feeling well. You're tired or sore or dealing with brain fog, and it makes pretty much any kind of work very difficult to achieve. Simple tasks take 5 times as long to accomplish if you can even manage to accomplish them at all. And in terms of creativity, it can be even harder. I struggle a lot to be creative when I'm sick. I want to be happy when I create. I want to feel good and excited and joyful about creating. Going into a creative session in a negative headspace or a groggy headspace or when you can't breathe because your nose is so stuffy, that can be extremely difficult and can suck the joy out of creating in the first place. And that's what happened with this painting for me. So I've had this illustration idea for quite a while now. The American Meadow Scouts have just had their seminar on environmentalism, and they're having this little forest cleanup day to earn their next badge. Now, I loved this idea, and I've been so excited about it. But I kept putting it off, not working on it when I had the energy to. So the end of the month rolled around, and I really needed to start on this painting because I was rapidly running out of footage for videos. So when I sat down to start painting, I was deep in that fatigue, deep in the icky sicky symptoms. Every single second of painting felt like an hour, and I just wasn't really feeling the joy for the creative process. I had a lot of mental fog and didn't really know what creative decisions to make in the painting. And you know what? I think that reflects in the final piece. Now, I don't believe it's an objectively bad painting or anything, but it's just not what I wanted it to be, and the experience of painting it was not what I wanted to have. I was not in the right headspace to paint it, but it needed to be done. Now, please hear me on this. That is not a healthy mindset in regards to creativity. I am not advocating for this. I'm simply sharing my experience in this particular situation. I don't believe art should be made simply to meet a deadline or simply to make a piece of content. The heart of it should be joy and a genuine passion for the creative practice. However, I'm also a business with real deadlines to meet and real commitments to keep. Because of my previous poor choices in planning, I had to paint this illustration whether I was in the right headspace or not. All this to say, fatigue or illness is not a form of resistance that I recommend just pushing through. You are not going to love the process, you are not going to love what you make, and when you're simply pushing through for piece after piece, it is a one-way ticket to burnout. Yes, we will face resistance in our creativity. We will face frustration. It's not always going to be easy, and it's not always going to be fun. Sometimes we do have to push through the uncomfy parts, but when a medical reason like fatigue or illness is involved, I think it's far more important to listen to your body. All right, side note over. So like I mentioned earlier, I was in a resistance rut in all areas of my career. Video editing, curriculum writing, painting, sketching, all the things. My sketchbook has been a barren wasteland. I kept telling myself that I simply didn't have enough time for my sketchbook, but the truth was that I didn't make the time. Some of my resistance was laziness, some of it was valid fatigue, but the deepest twofold root of the problem was this: a lack of intentionality and a lack of commitment to myself. Now, I know I say it all the time, but nurturing your creative practice or nurturing anything in your life requires intentionality, and that has not been present in my life lately. So I hate letting people down. If I've told you I'm going to be at your event, or pick up your groceries, or say a prayer for you, you can believe I will do everything within my power to make it happen. I will risk life and limb to keep my commitments to other people. But the same is not true for myself. I'm much less likely to keep a commitment to Allie than I am to Joe down the street. Over the past couple of months, I've been consistently letting myself down in different ways, and that's just not okay. My yes should still be a yes, whether it's for me or for somebody else. I shouldn't be lax about showing up for myself simply because no one else is counting on me to. And because I wasn't committed to myself, and I knew that, I also wasn't being intentional. I didn't want to set an intention that I knew I wasn't going to keep. I didn't really trust myself anymore. So I made no intentions for my sketchbook, or truly for my creativity in general, and let it kind of fall by the wayside. And once you've let this happen for a bit, trying to be intentional about getting back into it can be extremely daunting. The truth is, I was scared. The longer I went between sketching sessions, the more fear I felt about it. When you aren't intentional about being consistent in your creativity, your skills and your motivation suffer. They will inevitably regress at least a little bit. Every time I open my sketchbook, all I can think is,
how bad is this gonna be? How do I even hold my pencil? What is anatomy?
I was so frustrated because I didn't want to feel this way, but I'd been stuck like this for so long that I didn't really have any idea how to climb my way back out of it. So many things were contributing to this resistance rut, and getting out of it felt insurmountable. So, how do I get out of it? How do you get out of it if you've been in a rut too? Full disclosure, I'm still climbing out. I'm not there yet, but I am making progress. I'm taking the steps to get there. Step number 1, acknowledging that I even have a problem in the first place. Sometimes we just sit in denial that we're going through something, and let me tell you, that is the least helpful thing you can do. The problem still exists, whether you want to see it or not. So before I could begin tackling the resistance I was facing, I had to admit that things weren't going the way that they should be. I had to acknowledge that I am part of the problem. My laziness, my lack of commitment, my lack of intention, these were all things I was doing or not doing that got me into this rut in the first place. I also had to acknowledge the fatigue and illness symptoms, the resistance factor that was outside of my control. Chronic illness is an ever-present character always looming over my life. It does not strike when it's convenient, and sometimes I have to back off a little bit from a project to take care of myself. I had to acknowledge that some of this rut was because of that, and there isn't really anything I can do to fix that portion of it other than not overdoing it, if that makes sense. Step number 2, having grace on myself. Acknowledging where you're falling short is never easy, but it is necessary. And a piece that's just as necessary, yet often overlooked, is having grace on yourself. You are not a perfect person. You are going to make mistakes. You are going to let yourself down sometimes. Admit it, but don't sit in it. Don't just sit there in the shame or the pity. Forgive yourself and try again. Step number 3, letting go of the laziness. I'm no longer reaching for the low-hanging fruit first in a multitude of ways. For example, part of why I wasn't picking up my sketchbook was because I was picking up my phone. It's very, very true that it's a lot easier to get that dopamine hit from scrolling on Instagram or perusing your YouTube Watch Later playlist than it is from filling up a page in your sketchbook. But it's also true that that dopamine isn't nearly as rewarding in the long run. If I can bring out my nutrition nerd cap for a moment, it's like your macronutrients: fats, carbs, and protein. The dopamine from watching 20 minutes of YouTube is kind of like carbs. They satisfy you for a little bit, but an hour later, you're starving for more. The dopamine from 20 minutes in your sketchbook is like protein. It keeps you satiated for a while. It builds your muscles and your mind. It makes you stronger. Because I know how prone I am to reaching for my phone instead of doing something creative, I've simply stopped checking social media. No social media apps, only using YouTube for music or on special occasions. My phone is pretty boring now, which makes my sketchbook a much more exciting option. I'm also trying to tackle my harder tasks first so I can devote my best effort to them. When I'm writing a new curiosity quest, I don't want to put out a mediocre curriculum. I want to do my research. I want to explain things well. I want to make the assignments fun and exciting. When I'm working on a new painting, I don't want to sit there at the end of the day when I'm running low on spoons. I want to work on it in the morning when I'm fresh and energized and the sun is shining through my window. Some of us are morning people, some of us are night owls, but if you've been struggling with laziness, try to find the time of day when you're most energized and do those harder tasks in that time frame. Now, I'm not gonna lie, it's going to be hard at first. The first few days, I did not want to tackle the big tasks, particularly because there were so many of them. But the more I've been able to let go of the laziness and actually try, the easier it's become. Now, I'm not at all saying that my tasks are easy, because they're most definitely not. But pushing through that initial resistance is becoming easier. I'm building more momentum. The other day, I had a few minutes before an event and found myself just wanting to sketch. I didn't want the easy joy of scrolling on my phone. I wanted to make something. It was harder, but I liked it. I enjoyed it. Hard does not equal unenjoyable, and I think that's something I forget from time to time. Step number 4, setting an intention. So this one's in an effort to tackle both my lack of intention and my lack of commitment to myself. It is very hard to progress in any direction if you don't have any idea of what that direction is. So I jumped back into my nurture workbook and came up with a new intention. Setting an intention keeps me grounded by giving me clear direction and giving me something to hold myself accountable to. And it doesn't have to be big. In fact, I think it's better to start with something small. So I set the intention to spend 10 minutes in my messy sketchbook every day for 2 weeks to nurture both my love for creativity and my willingness to show up for it. That's it. No matter what else I've got going on in a day, I can find 10 minutes to sketch. It's low pressure, loose rules. Literally all I have to do is just show up. And step number 5, trying. Sounds kind of dumb, but we can acknowledge the problem, have grace on ourselves, let go of the laziness, and give ourselves goals or intentions to guide us. But at the end of the day, you have to put in the work. And the hard truth is, it is not going to be easy. Some days will be very big wins, and some days will be very big failures. And doing your best will look different from day to day, and that's perfectly fine. You'll take 3 steps forward and 2 steps back. You'll make a lot of mistakes, but be there for all of it. Keep showing up. Just because yesterday was a bad day doesn't mean today will be. Just because you spent the first 7 hours of today in a resistance rut doesn't mean you have to spend the last hours that way too. Hear me out, there are no lost causes here. Every moment is the opportunity to try, but only you can be the one to choose to take it. So if you've been going through a resistance rut, just know you are not alone. We all go through it sometimes. And more importantly, you can climb out of it. Anywho, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed watching me paint this Marikey Meadow illustration and chatting with me about my boss battle with resistance. If you like my artwork and want a little more of it in your life, my shop is full of prints, originals, and stickers to make your life just a little bit more cozy. Huge thank you to the Cozy and Curious Creatives over on Patreon for helping to support my art journey. If you're interested in another Miraky Meadow painting, then head on over to watch this video next. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you soon. Bye guys!